Okay, Mr. Mayor, we are live and ready when you are.
Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. This is a regular meeting of the Seldovia City Council, Monday, February 14th, 2022. Time is 6:07 PM. We'll go ahead and do roll call. Swick.
Here.
Peyton.
Here.
Nathan.
Here.
Sweat.
Here.
Rojas.
Here.
Kennedy.
Here.
Okay, we have everyone in attendance tonight. If you will all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Okay, excuse absences. We have none. We'll go ahead and look for agenda approval.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve tonight's agenda by Sweat, a second by Peyton. Any further discussion on the agenda before we vote? Okay, all those in favor, Swick,
Aye.
Peyton,
Aye.
Nathan,
Aye.
Sweat,
Aye.
Rojas,
Aye.
Kennedy. Aye. Okay, motion is approved to approve tonight's agenda. That's unanimous. Consent agenda item E. All items under the consent agenda are approved with a single motion, no discussion, and one vote. A council member may request to remove any item for discussion and a separate vote. Items removed from the consent agenda will be placed under new business. We have item 1 is the approval of minutes from the regular meeting, January 24th, 2022. Also minutes of a special meeting, January 31st, 2022. Those are found on page 11. The first meeting minutes are found on page 7. No ordinances for introduction. We have 3 resolutions. Resolution 22-32, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Seldovia prioritizing capital projects in the community for submission to the Alaska State Legislators Capital Projects Database for the upcoming legislative session beginning January 2022. That's found on page 13, and we discussed that at our last meeting. Item 3B, Resolution 22-33, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Seldovia authorizing the acceptance of the Kenai Peninsula Borough FY23 Senior Citizen Grant in the amount of $10,770 and authorizing the city manager to negotiate and execute the appropriate documents. That's found on page 21 of your packet. And then item 3C, resolution 22-34, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Seldovia authorizing the City of Seldovia's participation in the Low Income Household Water Assistance Program and authorizing the city manager to negotiate and execute the appropriate documents. That's found on page 25 of your packet. And then item 4A, it's an action memorandum 22-03 recommending the reappointment of Walt Sonnen as a representative for Seldovia to the Cook Inlet Regional Citizens Advisory Council, otherwise known as CIRCAC, and that's found on page 30 of your packet. So at this time, does any member wish to remove any of those items individually to discuss? Okay. Hearing none, we'll go ahead and look for a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Rojas to approve tonight's consent agenda. We have a second by Swick. Any further discussion before we vote on the consent agenda? Okay, all those in favor, Swick,
Aye.
Peyton,
Aye.
Nathan,
Aye.
Sweat,
Aye.
Rojas,
Aye.
Kennedy. Aye. Okay, motion is approved unanimously. The consent agenda is approved. Okay, mayoral proclamations. We have none. Item G, public presentation prior notice. We have none. Public presentation for items not on the agenda. Do we have anyone from the public, Heidi, that wishes to speak tonight?
I'm not seeing any hands raised at this time, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Item I, Committee and Advisory Board reports. We have none tonight. Item J, Administrative reports. None. And then item K, Public hearings. Item K1, Ordinance 22-10, a non-code ordinance of the City Council of the City of Seldovia, Alaska, amending the fiscal year 2022 operating budget to provide for necessary mid-year adjustments by appropriating and transferring funds from the general fund and water, wastewater, municipal dock, boat haul out and boat harbor / Jackalope dock special revenue funds and the ARPA grant funds account held in the Alaska Municipal League local investment pool. And this will be found on page 33 of your packet. And we'll go ahead and let the city manager take it over.
Thank you, Mayor. So this ordinance before the council is like a 6-month check-in for the fiscal year. So we looked at it in January about how June through December went for the city, how we were doing with our forecasting of expenses and revenues for the city. And so we noticed that we needed to make some adjustments and come back to the council and ask for more permission to spend funding based on some overages or areas in which we've added the need for more budget approval. And so the ordinance itself is on page 33 of your packet, and accompanying the ordinance as amended, because when the ordinance was introduced, it didn't include the account numbers for where the expense would be coded to. So we put those in, as well as corrected the titles of some of the accounts to make sure they match with our budget. So that's our ordinance as amended, starting on page 31. But on page 37 is a memo that accompanies the mid-year adjustment ordinance. So again, the ordinance provides additional budgetary authority from the council for these expenditures. Council was used to seeing this happen at the end of the fiscal year. I think it's a good practice to come before the council for overages or areas in which we're seeing the city might need more permission from the council to come back mid-year. And then towards the end of the year, we can clean up any other areas, because according to code, the city manager can take areas within the budget that haven't been spent and put them in other areas that you see are needing more budgetary authority within the same department, within the same classification. So I guess to give an example is, say for the boat haul out, I noticed that we coded a lot towards contractual services, but really we didn't spend as much as we thought we were going to spend there, and we ended up spending a lot more in material costs. The city manager per code can move that money over to that account, but I find that practice to do that throughout the year difficult to track. So it's nice to do, you have a mid-year adjustment for big overages that you're seeing right now, and then come before the council at the end of the year to say, hey, so I'm working within the authority that you gave me. I'm just moving money around in these different accounts per code in one lump sum. So that way you guys can see how everything is shaking out. I hope that makes sense. So the memo just touches on that. And then in terms of the adjustments, they're broken out by section. And if there's any questions regarding a particular adjustment, please let me know. But there's backup information for each mid-year adjustment section in the ordinance. And I'm available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anyone have any questions for the city manager on the mid-year adjustments?
Yeah,
Go ahead, Jen.
the 60th anniversary, what is this? I like the idea of some volunteer incentives. What are their plans in the works, or is this a big secret? Or
That's a great question, Councilmember Swick. Part of this comes from a conversation I had with Councilmember Payton in order to incentivize volunteerism. So I checked in with our insurance company just to make sure this would be an acceptable practice where the city can say, hey, if you volunteer 10 hours, the city would love to give you a $100 gift card just to say thank you so much for making that commitment. So that portion of this ordinance would help with that. So we're assuming that we would get 10 volunteers who'd be game to give 10 hours of their time. And then the other portion, the $1,500 for the 60th anniversary, we'll talk about it a little bit more in the manager's report. But we're hoping to have a key to the city event where the mayor, as the city's figurehead, is commemorating the city's 60th anniversary with a key. So having a key made to celebrate our 60th anniversary could go towards banners, pins for people for a 60th anniversary. So no set in stone plan yet, but those are just some of the general ideas.
Okay. And then as for the audit fees, this was for the company to help prepare for the audit, correct?
Correct.
Is this something that we're looking at every year, or is this to kind of get our stuff in line after the QuickBooks Cassell nightmare?
Through the mayor, Councilmember Swick, I wish I could say that this won't happen again, but I really hope it won't happen again.
Mhm.
We were really counting on the fact that we've been very proactive with the auditors for this upcoming audit of FY21. We asked them to send what they needed from us ahead of time. We had that all ready to go. They had delays on their end when they looked at our books and said, hey, you guys should really work with an accountant because you're having issues with 2019 carryovers from Cassell into QuickBooks, and there's other issues. And it's been a great learning experience for the team on how to be even more prepared. So I would like to say that I don't think we are going to need it again next year. I could see the city having an accountant or putting funds towards training on specific accounting procedures that'll help us make every subsequent audit more successful. I guess that's a long-winded way of saying.
Right.
I don't know, but I think some training and putting a little bit more budget so that our finance officer can call an accounting friend and say, hey, how do I do this? Would be a great way to avoid what we went through this year.
Right. Okay, thanks.
You bet.
I have a question, Rachel.
You bet.
Yep, go ahead.
So, the $12,000 we spent with that accounting firm, so the auditors, what they're going to charge remains the same though, right?
Correct.
Okay, well, we're definitely going to have to watch that. But I would definitely be in support of, what you're talking about, like paying for a little bit of extra so they can get more training,
Mhm.
for sure. Okay, thanks.
On the legal fees, the 10,000 for the additional legal fees under section 5. What's the program there? We just a lot more back and forth.
Yeah, so Mayor, our legal budget, I want to say for this past fiscal year, I can't remember the number off the top of my head, but I want to say it was somewhere between $10,000 and $20,000 for the full year for a city attorney. And to put that in comparison, because other cities have attorneys on retainer, so they don't have like a city attorney on staff. I believe Homer's budget is $240,000, and that comes with a firm that has multiple attorneys that specialize in multiple fields. We have Joe. Our contract with Joe actually expired a few years ago, and his rate is less. It's less fair market value than other city attorney fees. So it's actually a reasonable amount to budget towards legal fees. And we've had a lot of discussions on planning and zoning topics that have gone outside of staff expertise or capacity. So council had that recent discussion on the Blodgett variance. We recently used the city attorney again to help us with a variance conditional use permit question and various other sorts of questions that you can't anticipate before the fiscal year begins, but then you start to see that there's a particular trend or topic coming up. And
Yeah, and I know every time we make mention on council of, checking with the attorney, I
Right.
mean, we all have to understand there's a cost to that.
Right.
So we can't use that too loosely when it's, 300 or 350 an hour or whatever the,
I think it's 150 an hour.
that's more than reasonable.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. If that's all we're getting charged, that's a bargain. So, okay.
I
Yep.
just want to make a statement, and in this day and age, there's no getting around that.
No,
We absolutely have to have that legal advice,
yeah, absolutely.
unless one of us is a lawyer all of a sudden.
We can pretend,
Yeah,
but we're
yeah.
not. Okay, and then the 5,000 on item number 8, that's cleaned up finally, that 5,000 to AMLJIA for our deductible.
Correct.
That'll close that whole
Correct.
deal out once and for all. Okay. Okay. Any other questions, comments?
Just one last one. This 11,000 for the bank fees or whatever. This is a half a year's worth of processing credit cards. Is that what that is?
No, that's through the mayor. That's a full year
Oh,
of
okay.
fees. And they were coded initially to admin, and then the finance officer was like, the general fund barely makes up any of these fees. Like, people usually pay with cash, and very rarely is it nearly the extent of water, credit card payments, sewer. So she recommended that we take that allocation of that expense out of the general fund and apply it to the special revenue funds that are actually causing the city to have those credit
Right.
card fees.
Okay, that makes sense. I was just wondering if that was
You bet.
half
So
or
that's just a cleanup. then.
full.
You bet. Taking that expense and moving it to where it's actually taking place in.
Okay, any final questions, comments before we go to the public? Okay, does anyone from the public wish to comment on ordinance 22-10 regarding the mid-year adjustments to the Seldovia city budget?
Not seeing any hands raised at this time, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll bring it back to council for final action on ordinance 22-10.
Yeah,
Mr.
make a
Mayor,
motion.
oh,
Go ahead, Vivian.
go ahead and adopt 22-010 or 22-10, sorry.
A second.
Okay, we have a motion by Rojas to approve ordinance 22-10. We have a second by Sweat. Any further discussion before we vote?
And Mayor, could we have that
Ye-
say as amended?
Yep, yes, correct, as amended. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Thank you for reminding. Okay, any further discussion before we vote? Okay, all those in favor of ordinance 22-10, Swick,
Aye.
Peyton,
Aye.
Nathan,
Aye.
Sweat,
Aye.
Rojas,
I,
Kennedy. Aye. Okay, motion passes. Ordinance 22-10 is passed. Okay, that will take us to item L, unfinished business, none. Item M, new business. Item M1, resolution 22-35, a resolution of the city council of the city of Seldovia adopting the city of Seldovia snow removal policy, and that is on page 39 of our packet. Go ahead, city manager, take it away.
Thank you, Mayor. So council, at your last meeting, we had a discussion on the city's snow policy and this essential service that we provide to the community. It was discussed that the last policy that administration could find was from 1992, and that the practices outlined in that policy document weren't aligning with what was taking place in 2022. So we updated the policy document. We got council's input on both the policy document and the prioritization list, which accompanies it. And through your review and passage of this resolution this evening, this will then go out to the public so that they can see and have a better understanding about how snow removal takes place in Seldovia, because it's a frequent flyer question for the city clerk, the executive assistant, and the public works staff. And so I hope that this effort and putting this on our website, as well as mailing it out to the community, will add more clarification on this service and how it's taking place. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from council?
I have one. The
You got your deal on there? Oh, yeah. it's
Yeah.
on.
the storage yards, I meant to talk to Jordan about this. They're not maintained at all during the winter. Has that been a common, I mean, I don't really know. I've heard some complaints from people with their boats in there. Not my husband.
Good cover.
that they couldn't get in there at all. I mean, can we like make one swipe in so you can at least get in there or nothing? I
Yeah,
don't-
through,
I don't
through the
know.
mayor council members, I was told the city does not maintain the storage yards
Mhm.
and that there are people in town who could help remove someone's vessel out of the storage yard if they need it in the winter, but it's been routine practice to not maintain
No,
them.
Okay. Okay.
I would like to chime in on that. I don't know why we would have, not to open up Pandora's box here. I do not know why we would have a private individual, and maybe someone will come up with a better example, have to come in to do, and I get we have limited resources, but I would think that on a case by case basis, if there was something that needed in our own storage yard, we'd be able to handle that. Because then I question if somebody else comes in that yard with a plow truck or a loader and wipes out an electrical pedestal or hits somebody else's boat, what insurance do they have to cover them? Then it just comes right back on the city. Just a thought. Don't want to overthink it, but just something to think about.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to agree with that statement. It seems weird that we're charging for use of this space, but we aren't maintaining it. Seems like I understand that we are spread thin, but we should take that into account that, we are charging people to park here. And we are responsible, like the mayor said, for the vessels in our space that we're renting to people.
Yeah, I would think it would just be a simple one-off, like if no one's working for 3 months, and I mean, yeah, the city doesn't make it a standard practice to clear it, but if someone does need to get in there and either get, some sort of access to their boat or get their boat out at a certain time or something, that they could come in and request that through the city manager. And then obviously you have the latitude based on, priorities and workload and stuff to make that call. Can't get it today, sorry, but give us a couple days. We'll get someone over there, get a path in there or whatever. So that's me personally.
Right. I think
That's all I'm looking for.
normally I think it's, they take one swipe into at least the big yard, just so you can at least pull your car in there. So you're not parking elsewhere. Obviously we're not going to be shoveling around people's boats or anything like that, because they're not going anywhere, but yeah, just a little swipe out so you could park in there maybe would be nice. I don't know. Just, again, it's hard to put on paper that we're not maintaining these at all in the winter, because why would you can't have access to your boat when people may need to.
Right, no, these are great points, Mayor Campbell and Councilmember Swick, and that's just how I've been told the city has operated those yards in the past. But if council would like to change that policy or procedure, now's the time. So you could specify similar to what we put for the dock. Municipal dock snow removals prioritized when scheduled to be in use, which includes the ferry days, as well as when dock users request the city to clear the dock, which will occur as staff capacity allows. So if council wants to, you could amend that too for the boat storage yard.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with that too. I don't think we should be having private individuals in there, because speaking with much love for my snow plower, I have had quite a bit of damage to my house, my sheds, this, that, from plowing. So, yeah, and I don't think we want to have that potentially in our boatyard. Good Lord, that could be a disaster if
That's-
somebody's not paying attention.
Could we leave it to just say that minimally maintained and something along the lines of when there's a request?
Yeah, or an as needed basis,
Yeah,
and must check in with the city manager.
something.
Leave it up to your guys' discretion. We
Right.
don't want to make this difficult, but
Right.
I mean, you've got to manage your resources, and then we just know that, yeah, all it would be was someone make a simple amendment to that bullet, exactly like you're saying.
Correct.
And we move on.
Right. So the boats haul out storage yards will be minimally maintained during the winter. Additional snow removal.
Must be
upon-
coordinated through the city manager.
Yeah, there you go.
Just say by appointment.
Yep, something, yep, exactly.
Okay, will occur as staff capacity allows.
Yeah, sounds good.
Great. That's great feedback. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments before we go to the public on the snow removal policy? Okay. Okay, we'll go ahead and move to the public. Heidi, do we have anyone from the public that wishes to speak on resolution 22-35?
Yes, hi, this is Greg Wolfer.
Yep.
I'm a city employee of Seldovia in the trash refuge department. And I'd like to give a shout out to all the city crew members who've been clearing the roads and doing an incredible job. So I know a lot of people have probably gave them shout outs too, but as a city employee, the trash truck is coming through and I'm able to collect my trash and go up to the dump. So good shout out to them. And the snow removal has just been right on. And even though we've been getting snow almost every other day, the removal crew is right on it. So good shout out to these guys.
Good. Yeah, comments well appreciated, Greg. Yeah, and that's obviously we can see that the guys are working hard. We haven't had a year like this in quite some time. So knock on wood, our little trusty grader holds up for a few more months here. So I see Johnny Gruber's been getting lots of stick time in that thing. So yeah, no, that's good. Appreciate those comments. Anyone else from the public?
I'm not seeing any hands raised at this time, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Heidi. Okay, we'll go ahead and bring it back to the city council for final action, and it's on page 42. And looks like we're gonna have, be looking at an amendment here. So next to the last bullet on page 42.
So I would like to, move to make an amendment
Mhm.
to the storage yard bullet to read, the boat haul out storage yards will be minimally maintained during the winter. Additional snow plowing can be requested through the city manager. Does that work?
Perfect. And do we have a second on that?
I second the motion.
Okay, so we have an amendment proposed by Swick to read that the boat haul out storage yard will be minimally maintained during the winter, and that any snow removal will be coordinated through the city manager. We have a second. Who seconded that? Was that John? Seconded it. And any discussion on the amendment?
I don't have a discussion. Mr. Mayor, I don't have anything to say about that specific amendment, but I do have a question regarding the bullet on substandard streets such as the boardwalk. I know that there have been winters in the past where the boardwalk hasn't been cleared unless specifically an individual is called the city specifically. I think that nobody's looking at the boardwalk and thinking that it's a standard, or that, it's going to be cleared at the same rate that, Airport Drive is. But it seems like a lot of time goes by between when it's maintained and when it's not. And it is technically a city street, and I do hear that mostly from pedestrians, to be sure. However, we do have people living on the boardwalk and do have the right to use it. They pay the same taxes that the rest of us do. So I don't know, what our schedule is for maintaining the boardwalk, but if we can make sure that we do maintain the boardwalk after snows.
Through the mayor.
Yep.
Do you guys vote on the amendment first?
Yeah, we'll
and then-
vote on the
Okay.
amendment. Yeah, we'll vote on that amendment here.
Okay.
Just, you want to take that one though?
Yeah, you bet.
Yep.
So through the mayor, Councilmember Peyton, I've been told by our Public Works crew that they don't maintain the boardwalk as regularly as they do regular roads. They view the boardwalk, while a road more of a pedestrian path. And so when it looks like the snow is difficult for pedestrians, then they will go through with the backhoe, which is very precarious, and they will remove the snow that way. But it's not something that they're looking to maintain for a car to go through there. And I know that there's been feedback that particularly from one resident, that there is interest in seeing a car driven on there. And it's something that the city can explore in the future of ways to make it so that it's not used as a actual road. That's the feedback that I've gotten, is it's maintained by the city as a more of a pedestrian path.
Sure.
Mr. Mayor,
I
if I may-
agree.
Yep, go ahead, Harmony. Go ahead. You can finish up and then we'll go to Vivian.
Yeah, I agree with that thought. Just as it currently exists by people purchasing or who have purchased and who are using, it should be, I mean, like winters, like we're experiencing where we get big snows and then rains and then more snows and rains, and it's just crazy ice built up. I don't know. We should consider some sort of regular, whether it's a snow blower path, something.
Yeah, we just have to balance our liability with that too, right?
Yeah, totally.
Liability and resources, is
Yeah,
the same
You
thing.
don't want your big equipment falling off the edge of the earth, for
Yeah,
sure, but
yep.
you don't want somebody suing you because they fell and broke a hip either.
Yep, yep. Understood.
Mayor?
Vivian, did you have a comment? And then we'll get to you, George. Okay.
Yep. I just want to comment. For years, the boardwalk wasn't maintained mainly because of the damage that happened with the backhoe going on the boardwalk. And so I agree with what Rachel just talked about. There needs to be some discretion with our employees that they know when to plow it or when not to plow it, because the damage that happened over the years, they were replacing boards on the boardwalk because of the damage of trying to remove snow. And to me, it is a pedestrian path. And for years, when the city decided not to plow it, they ended up hiring, I think, Raymond Waterbury, and he went through with his little four-wheeler with the plow on it. So it hasn't always been maintained, and truly it's dangerous if for anybody who's driving through there to want to go all the way around when there's options to go either way and not have to go down along where no one lives in front of Stranix and in front of, well, Stranix mainly and around the corner. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Vivian. George, you had a comment?
Yeah, I was just gonna go about the same place Vivian did. I know Stranix have talked to us before about that, and that's not really what we're talking about as far as the boardwalk itself. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean,
That's
we're
the
talking
other
about
end.
the main portion of the boardwalk there. I mean, I think the other section of that road that goes, or all of it, I guess. Yeah,
The hill that.
yeah, yeah.
From Vivian's house up the hill
Yep.
toward Stranix, probably we should consider taking care of on some sort of a basis. They're pretty major taxpayers. But as far as the other end goes, that's more like a walkway, as you say. Anyway.
Yeah. So either way, I mean, voices have expressed their concerns. So,
Excellent. Thank you.
yep. Okay. Any more questions, comments specific to the amendment?
No, I just you have a typo on Cedar Street. I don't know if that needs an amendment or you can just fix that. It says Cedary Street.
Were you looking there, Councilmember?
Fourth bullet. Oh, Cedar Street, and then it's Cedary Street. The Y needs to be removed off the second Cedar.
We can just call that administrative.
We'll call
No
that
amendment
administrative.
needed. Okay.
Yep, correct. Okay.
Good catch.
Okay, if no further discussion on the amendment, we will go ahead and vote on the amendment. All those in favor, Swick,
Aye.
Peyton,
Aye.
Nathan,
Aye.
Sweat,
Aye.
Rojas,
Aye.
Kennedy. Aye. Okay, the amendment passes unanimously. And you've got that recorded, Heidi. You're good with the language on that?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. That'll take us back to the main motion now as amended. for adopting our snow removal policy. Is there any further discussion or comments on adopting the policy as amended?
Do we need a motion to adopt it?
Yeah, we will.
And
Okay, if there's no further discussion, we'll go ahead and look for a motion to approve the resolution 22-35 as amended.
I'll make the motion to approve resolution 32 or 22-35 as amended.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve resolution 22-35 as amended by Peyton, and we have a second by Nathan. All those in favor, Swick,
I,
Peyton,
Aye.
Nathan,
Aye.
Sweat,
Aye.
Rojas,
Aye.
Kennedy. Aye. Okay, 22-35 as amended is passed unanimously. Okay, thank you everyone for the discussion on that. That'll take us to item M2, discussion Jackalope Bay State Dock State of Alaska Deferred Maintenance. This will be found on page 43 of your packet, and we'll let the city manager take it away.
Thank you, Mayor. So council, please go to page 43 of your packet as I'm going to walk us through an email exchange I had with our city auditors. And I wanted to take a moment to apologize because I believe that there could be confusion regarding the use of the state funds that the city received for the deferred maintenance of Jackalope Bay Dock. And so I finally had a chance to check in with our auditors about it and get a clear picture. And so I just wanted to walk the council through that so that we have clarity moving forward about the deferred maintenance funds that the city received from the state. So in mid-January, I talked to our city auditors and just went over something called the Harbor Improvement Capital Project Fund. And that is a fund that the auditors established, I believe, starting in FY 2017 in consultation with the former city manager, Cassidy Cameron, about the Jackalope Bay Dock deferred maintenance funds that the city received. So in short, 2008 happens, we accept the dock from the state in addition to $376,000. That money was considered deferred revenue and it sat in the general fund. It sat in our bank account and we did not credit expenses to it. And this was something that the auditors caught starting in 2017. They came to the former city manager and said, you need to start putting expenses towards this. This can't just sit here. And so the city manager established an amortization rate of $50,000 a year, taking place in FY17 through FY20. So $200,000 to make up for the fact that the city hadn't been crediting expenses towards that those grant funds that the city received from the state in 2008. So in essence, of that period of time, we're talking about $22,000 a year that the city spent in maintenance towards the dock that we weren't applying expenses to. So I had that conversation with the auditor starting in January, and I included, starting on page 45 of your packet, is the cover sheet to our most recent certified audit statement. And then page 46 just shows the Harbor Improvements Capital Project Fund. And it says accounts for improvements to the harbor, but that's specific to Jackalope Bay Dock. And then you'll see on page 47 in your packet where it says that the receiving fund is the Harbor Improvements Capital Project Fund. The payable fund is the general fund. So it's saying that the general fund owes this Harbor Improvement Capital Project Fund account that much money in FY20. So I'm just going to walk through the email with the auditors. I kind of gave a little bit of a preview, but basically the auditors confirm that the city has not misspent the funds that the state gave to the city for Jackalope Bay Dock in 2008. In 2008 through 2017, the funds were considered deferred revenue and received as cash and held in the city's bank account. However, they weren't used. Instead, in conversations held between the auditor and the former finance officer and city manager Cassidy Cameron from 2008 to 2017, the general fund was covering expenses of the dock, but not applying those expenses to the deferred revenue received from the state. So in FY17, Administration decided that the city should amortize that by $50,000 a year to take into account the work and time the city put into the dock starting in 2008, but didn't apply to that deferred revenue. So as of FY20, the city has amortized $200,000 of the $376,000 amount, which remains approximately $176,000 remains. And that $50,000 amortization rate was proposed by Cassidy Cameron as an estimate, but it's fair to assume that starting in 2008 through 2017, which is a 9-year period, the city may have spent a little over $22,000 a year on the dock. And some of those expenses could look like labor, maintaining the dock, or enforcing city policies by the harbor master, chief of police. And so during the upcoming FY21 audit process, which just happened last week, the auditors were here in Seldovia. I changed the amortization rate from $50,000 to $20,000 because in FY21, the city incurred about $20,000 worth of expenses, in my opinion. So as of FY20, we have $176,235 remaining from that deferred maintenance money amount. You need to subtract $20,000 from that for FY21. So in FY22, our current fiscal year, for Jackalope Bay Dock, we have $156,235 remaining. So I think to make this clear for the future, in our FY23 budget, we'll set up a special revenue fund or a special fund on paper so that moving forward, it's more clear this whole process, because with staff transitions and then also trying to understand the financial statements, which can be quite arduous, we now have this interpretation, which has been confirmed by the auditors. And so now we know that we have $156,000 right now in fiscal year 2022 for Jackalope Bay Dock. Any questions?
Any questions from council? Any questions from council?
The one question I had was the last bullet, and it pretty well explains it there on that, about what would, if there was any remaining funds, if we were to dismantle or remove the dock.
Right. And so the state gave those funds specifically for that harbor facility. And so if the city decides to dismantle the dock, you could apply. Those would be a reasonable expenditure to apply towards the remaining $156,000. Or you could hold on to it and use it for, I'm assuming, like grants to replace or maintain the dock. Yeah.
Also use a portion of that to explore a new design as well. I mean, with all the funding going to be available for infrastructure over the next 5 years, I think it would be very incumbent of us to have a design, which I think will be minimal costs for that size of a dock, to have a shovel-ready design ready to go for when we start moving forward. So, but yeah, so it sounds like we have, this is getting cleaned up. These bullets and the conversation with the auditors make it pretty clear in my mind that yes, accounting, we could have done that a little sooner, obviously, and that would have taken some of the, maybe answered some of the questions here of commingling funds, but it would have certainly straightened out a lot of the questions that we've had from ourselves and the community on this subject. So any other questions or comments from council?
And Mayor, I just wanted to again apologize to the council. I'm sorry it's taken me so long to catch up with this information. And I hope that moving forward, we'll have a better understanding that we can communicate with the public, because I think there's been a lot of confusion about this situation. So
Thank you. Yep. Thank you for that. And I think just one more note. And then, so if you went back for FY21 and our expenses were approximately just over 20,000 for that year, by you reducing the amortization rate from 50 to 20, that's probably, remember the 50,000 was making up for the previous year since 2008. Now we're on a schedule where it's costing us about $20,000 a year, give or take, depending on each year will be a little bit different, but that seems to be in line with, historically and accurate numbers. So
Correct.
I think that was a good move on your part. And then that's nice to see that we'll get that fund established. And then it'll be on paper, completely transparent going forward.
Correct.
So, okay, good. Anyone from the public have any comments, questions on the Jackalope Bay deferred maintenance funds?
I'm not seeing any hands raised at this time, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Bring it back to the council. This was a discussion item. Do you need anything else from us tonight, or any final questions, clarifications from council? Okay, appreciate your update on that, and working through this with the auditors. I know government accounting can be extremely confusing when you commingle funds, and everything is just theoretic. I mean, we've all struggled with this when budgeting comes around, and we've got all these accounts, and it's just money in, money out, credit, debit. That's all it is. And a lot of stuff can get lost in the wash. And we've had a fair amount of turnover in the last 10, 15 years. So I'm glad this one we can finally put to bed and move on to a better day with this one. So, okay, thank you. I'll take it to item M3, discussion of Seldovia participation in the RAISE grant application. This will be found on page 48 of your regular packet. And let the city manager take it away.
Thank you so much. And I believe Radzi hinted at this earlier during the work session, that this is a grant opportunity that I'm asking for the council's support in pursuing. It's called RAISE, which stands Rebuilding American Infrastructure with Sustainability and Equity. And in talking with both the state area-wide planner for Central Region at DOT, as well as a grant consultant that the Alaska Municipal League has hired to help municipalities figure out and interpret the landscape of grants through the bipartisan infrastructure bill, because there's so many coming out. They said that if you have a project that's port related and transportation related, RAISE is the way to go. And so let's see, I'm just looking through some examples here because I provided a lot of information about the grant in your packet starting on page 48. So just a little bit about RAISE. It provides a unique opportunity for the federal DOT to invest in road, rail, transit, and port projects that promise to achieve national objectives. And so RAISE is unique in that for 2022, they're looking for projects that have regional impact, which I believe Seldovia has, projects that, touch more than one community. And so I got feedback from the statewide area planner that our harbor needs improvements, as well as Jackalope Bay Dock, and we could apply for both through RAISE. And in doing a little bit more digging, RAISE is broken out into construction grant funding and planning grant funding. And after talking with the grant writer on Friday, both myself and the finance officer were in that meeting, I don't think the city would qualify at this time for the construction portion of the funding. But I do think that we have a very fair shot of qualifying for the planning funding. And I say that just because, and I think I've touched on this a little bit with the council. We know that we have infrastructure maintenance needs, but we haven't set ourselves up to have more shovel-ready projects. And Senator Murkowski had a town hall last week in which she said that for the bipartisan infrastructure bill and the Building Back America funding, they intentionally didn't use the terms shovel-ready. But she did say if your town is thinking, oh, it'd be nice if we made this happen for our port, chances are you're not going to get funding, because they're looking for projects that have been in the queue for a while that are ready to go. Like as soon as they apply for the funding, they have their permitting, their design, their feasibility study, their cost benefit analysis, their environmental analysis, all of that's done so that they can show the federal government, we've been waiting for this and here's this project. We don't have that, but we could pursue funding for planning for that. So in talking with the grant writer, something that the Great Raise Grant wants is a cost benefit analysis. What this project will do for your community versus the cost. Like, what are the benefits of improving our harbor and Jackalope Bay dock? And how do they value that against other projects? And environmental analysis. What permitting do we need? What, there are federal species that are protected in marine environments. That can be really intense to go through those permitting processes, especially with piling replacements and making really loud sounds. That requires input and studies. And then feasibility study, how does it look in terms of costs and revenue you're bringing in versus the expenses? Will it pencil out? And that's unique with Jackalope because we haven't explored a fee schedule yet and how we could hold people accountable to paying to use the dock. So putting all that information aside, I think that the city should attempt to apply or should apply for the planning portion of the RAISE grant, knowing that there's a very good chance that we won't get it our first year, but that's okay because RAISE grant gives you feedback based on your proposal and tells you how you can make it better. This is one of the grants to go for port infrastructure improvements. We'll give it a shot. Maybe we'll get it on our first go in terms of planning. And if not, we'll do better again next year. And then a concern that I had was, and I shared this with the grant writer, if the city pursues the RAISE grant for planning, does that disqualify us for the construction component? Because construction, I think, is valued up to 25 million, which improving both our harbor and the dock would definitely benefit from a $25 million chunk if we needed that much. I don't think we do. So I was concerned that if we did planning, then they would say, nope, you already got planning money from us, so you have to go somewhere else. But the grant writer said that actually makes you look more competitive because it shows, hey, they took the time for planning and they got that lined out. And we know that they would be a successful applicant, they would successfully manage this project. So we feel even better about giving them the funding to do the construction. So if there's any additional questions about this grant, I can try to answer them. I know that Cordova got $20 million for RAISE to build their harbor. Haynes got $20 million to replace their dock. And the city clerk got me the application they use. So I'm planning to use that as a template so that we have a better chance of having a well put together application. And Yakutat, it looks like, actually, no, sorry, they didn't get RAISE grant funding, but for Alaska, it was pretty big. There's a tribe that got $12 million. So a lot of really exciting prospects for Seldovia, I think, that comes through RAISE. And then something that Cordova faced that would be really helpful in having an engineer do a cost benefit analysis or design estimation was Cordova got $20 million, but their project cost due to inflation and supply chain disruptions increased by 40%. So they got the money and then they realized, oh my gosh, we're 40% short of what we actually need. Because when we applied, we were in a whole different scenario. And so Senator Murkowski is trying to work with them to see if there's a way that they can figure out how to fully fund that project, because if Cordova can't come up with that match, then they might lose $20 million. So that's something that we should keep in the back of our minds, is that when we're pursuing the grant funding, it's great to work with engineers or firms that are really up to date on inflation costs, supply chain disruption, and all of those issues, because I wouldn't want Seldovia to be in that same boat where we say, great, this is how much our project's going to cost and you gave us this funding, but actually we're 30% or 40% short because of all of these other issues. So that's it on RAISE. And then I just wanted to quickly also share, the grant writer told me that coming up in mid-February, the U.S. Department of Transportation Maritime Administration is going to have a port infrastructure development grant issued. And there's no details. There isn't a NOFO, a notice of funding opportunity, which kind of explains the grant out yet. But I'm also looking at that to see, could we apply for RAISE for planning? They give us that funding and then simultaneously apply here for construction. Just throwing that out there.
Okay, yep, go ahead, John.
One quick question. What's the time frame for your staff to apply for that?
So we have
Really?
2 months. It's a great question, Councilmember Kennedy. We have 2 months, which means that we will be tapped and we cannot take on any big projects from
That's what
now
I'm
until
worried
April
about.
14th. Mhm.
Yeah. And then you kind of answered my second question is where would the money come from for the grant writer in the last statement there? So,
Yeah, I was thinking for this one that we would try it in-house. We also have the Jackalope Bay
okay.
Dock funding.
well, I was going to ask that.
Great,
That's-
that's an excellent connection. So but for the planning component, I think I asked the engineers who worked on managing or did the construction management of the small boat harbor. I asked them to look at the 2011 numbers that we got from the Army Corps and updating them to 2022 standards. And they're going to come to Seldovia March 1st and check out Jackalope Bay Dock and our harbor to
Okay.
look at pricing.
Right.
And then,
Pretty exciting, really.
yeah, and see if
Did-
we could make something happen there.
Did you say that you were able to get some examples of some other successful grants?
Yes,
Fantastic. Okay, thank you.
you bet.
Mr. Mayor?
Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, Rachel, so these 2 grants you're talking about, are those different than the infrastructure bill itself?
Oh, I'm sorry if that wasn't clear, Councilmember Sweat. So raise is through the infrastructure bill.
Oh, okay,
So this is one of
So
the
that's
many
one of
grants
the-
that's coming through that.
okay. And then didn't you say you could get some help with the grant through, what's that organization?
Alaska Municipal League?
Yes,
Yes, they are. They are helping, and this grant writer we spoke with on Friday said that they actually, Alaska Municipal League budgeted $2,500 per community where you could consult for free, like, so not an expense charged to the city, where
Oh.
we could consult with a grant writer. So I was
Okay.
thinking that would be nice for the city to use in terms of language. For example, like you could talk about Jackalope Bay Dock from an incident command structure where like natural disaster happens and the community needs another access point out of Seldovia. So there's different language that you can use to evoke the importance of the situation, or focusing on our subsistence lifestyle and how rural we are. And we are, according to the census, an area of persistent poverty. So that is something that the federal government looks at too when considering you for the funding.
yeah, I read some of that, and there's really, I mean, when you think about it, because I've thought a lot about different things out there with Jackalope Dock, and there's really nothing, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that having that dock could do for everyone, from health to all sorts of things. So I think if you really look at it and think about what all that dock means, it's a lot more than just what some of us originally, thought about. You can find all kinds of things, I think, to make it hopefully work according to what the grant says.
Absolutely.
We have to do, yeah.
Mayor Campbell,
Yep, go ahead.
have you talked to Crystal Collier at all about what they're looking at doing with the Windy Bay connection? I know that Cassidy and Tim did a presentation a couple years back through Cape Head. There's some initiative with the state at the state level where they're looking at, does anybody else remember this, like connecting Alaska or something? They're looking at increasing traffic throughout the state to just try to increase tourism and have a lot more revenue options for in-state travel. And I think that the Jackalope Dock is a port of a lot of foot traffic that goes through there that we don't even see in town. A lot of bikers and hikers and berry pickers and such. And
That's a
if
great
going
idea.
forward, we did have some sort of fee schedule, I think that in future, we'll only see an increase of that type of traffic, especially if SVT or SNA, whichever heading that falls under, is able to pursue their project.
Yeah, that's a
I think
great
it's
idea.
actually SMA.
I will check in with her on that.
Is this so this April 14th deadline, is this the first round? So it said there's going to be 13 rounds of funding. Is this the first round of raise? And I'm unclear if this grant roundup that Senator Murkowski sent out, was any of this through raise or just various other parts of the
Yes.
infrastructure? Because it doesn't specifically say.
So the first two for sure raise.
Okay, the Cordova and Haynes, the 40 million.
Yep. That's,
Okay.
yeah, that is raised. I don't know which round this is in, and it's over a period of 5 years.
Okay, so
So-
then we're gonna have, if that's the case, then you can do the math. It looks like we're gonna have just over 2 periods per year
Right.
is what it looks like to me then.
Right. That makes sense to me.
For keeping things moving here then. So, yeah, so it would be, I mean, like we said, I mean, we're not gonna find another more favorable period in the near future for infrastructure funding specific to transportation, airports, docks, bridges, et cetera, based on the amount of money that, Congress just passed here and more that they're still trying to get. So we need to get moving on this one way or another if we ever hope to have get any of this money.
And Mayor, to add to
Mayor, if
that
I may.
too, something that numerous people have said is that any effort you put towards a grant isn't wasted if you're unsuccessful, because you've spent the time already getting all the pieces together.
Mhm.
You've worked on the language. You usually get feedback about how it can be better. So then you're a more aggressive competitor for the grant funding next round. So, I just asked the city clerk to compile for me all the minutes of discussion regarding Jackalope dock from 2008 to now, as well as 2013 onward for the harbor. That's one step in showing community support for our marine infrastructure. There's so much more we could pull to make a successful first attempt at grant funding for this.
Correct. George, do you have a comment? And then Vivian, I'll get to you.
I was just gonna say, we probably should be in as big a hurry as we can get. This is kind of out there, but looking at the national political situation, all this could go away after the midterms. That's only 7 months away. So I think we should make our best effort right now.
Yep, agreed. Vivian, did you have a comment?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say what a great opportunity. And Rachel, thank you for heading this up. And I think it's a really good idea that you ended up getting the templates from Cordova and whoever the other one was to help guide you along. It's a great opportunity. I looked over the grant and the parameters. I think Seldovia fits it beautifully. Thank you.
Yep, thank you, Vivian. Yeah, Cordova and Haynes. Haynes was the other big one, and then there was a tribe in there that got 12 million also. But Cordova and Haynes, both reasonably smaller coastal communities. And I see Cordova must be fairly good because they've got a number of grants that they were awarded for different things. So we need to consult with their grant writer.
Well, I think too, Cordova, pulls in a lot of money for the
Yeah.
state.
Yeah.
I mean, with commercial fishing.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not going to be overlooked for anything.
So
Yep, go ahead. George, you have
I was just gonna ask the city manager, have you talked to John Imhoff lately?
Through the mayor, no, I have not.
That's kind of what he does for a living, and he said he would help us, so.
That's a great point. I will follow up with him.
so we're gonna try and pursue both at the same time. Is it one application asking to fund both of them? Okay, no, we're gonna do Jackalope and your
Yes.
mic's off.
Yes. Can you clarify again? You mean both grants or?
Well,
Is this one project,
is-
two locations,
right.
but is this one
Yes.
project?
Yes, and I want
We're gonna ask for the planning money to do both of them, so it's gonna be both or nothing. They're not gonna say, hey, we're gonna fund you for the Jackalope piece of it, but not the main harbor piece of it.
I'm not sure how that works. Like, do you want to break? So I read for at least applying for the construction portion of the grant funding that you want to put it in phases because they could always say, we're not going to fund these phases. So
Right.
maybe if we broke it out into two, they could say, we're not going to fund
The
Jackalope dock, but
phase.
we'll fund the harbor, but the project title I've come up with so far is Seldovia Regional Marine Transportation Network Improvements, and trying to connect them as a network. And then, you could have an engineer make plans that use that name to show they're connected in that way. And maybe then that would be hard to deny one.
Right.
You would see it as a joint project.
Okay. And then, is there not already plans for the harbor somewhere? Wasn't that a phase thing that we have other phases to go?
Yes, but I'm sure we'll see what,
It's outdated at this point.
we'll see what Moffett and Nickel has to say when they're here on
Oh,
March
okay.
1st, because they worked.
Because
with
there's
us with-
some sort of plans already
Correct.
there. They just need to be probably updated and
Yeah,
inflated.
that's what I was saying. I don't think it would be too tough to go back and look at getting, 2 months is quick here. We go through this, we get through this, but then we start looking at where we're at in the
Right.
design process to get something a little more shovel ready so that
Right.
the next application is for a construction portion rather than just a design portion. So,
Bingo.
yeah.
Okay.
yeah, no,
Great.
that's makes perfectly good sense to me. All right, any other questions, comments before we go to public on the raise grant application? Okay, anyone from the public that wishes to speak on our participation in the raise grant application? Looks like we have Mr. Wolfer.
Yeah, all I can say is, wow, it's really hard to wrap your head around all these figures and stuff, but I did want to give a shout out to City Manager Freelander for getting the Community Development Block Grant application out. I think it was kind of a weather situation there to get that out, and hopefully the other grants we could weed through, and it's pretty difficult. I'm actually gobsmacked by it all. It's just overwhelming as an average citizen here to understand the funding, the grants, what we apply for and what we don't apply for, what will work, what won't work, and so on. So I'm following the wisdom of our mayor and his sayings too, but it's complicated, and all I can say is, wow.
It gets a little overwhelming at times, so especially when we have as small of staff as that we have. So, and that's probably our biggest hindrance. So as we don't have dedicated personnel to, just snap our fingers and say, hey, spend a couple weeks of your time focusing on this and nothing else is going to be impacted, or minimally impacted. So thank you, Mr. Wolford, for that. Heidi, anyone else from the public?
I'm not seeing any more hands raised at this time, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, sounds good. We'll bring it back to council. Any closing? So do you want a motion? Oh, you'd like a motion on this one then? Okay. All right. We'll have back to council. Any further discussion? And then it looks like we'll need a motion to let them move forward. Yep. Go ahead, George.
One more thing. When the SNA asked us to identify their dock site as part of the native water infrastructure plan, they also designated our harbor dock because that's where their ferry was tied up at the time. And I know they received a grant to rebuild their dock. We're still, I assume, on that program. That might be something we could look at as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's worth having a mention of that program as well as in the application along with, being tied to the Alaska Marine Highway and then part of the Kachemak Bay water trail system. Just all those things that go together cohesively as part of a grant application. So
There's a specific program that they were part of. It's, BIA, I believe, sponsored it. But anyway, they designated our harbor as part of the Seldovia.
Yeah, they didn't include us, obviously.
Yeah, well, why wouldn't they?
Because we're not Indian.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, we'll look for a motion to give the city direction in participation of the raise grant application that is due April 14th.
I'll make a motion to have the city manager move forward with the raise grant application.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Sweat to have the city manager move forward with the raise grant application. We have a second by Peyton. Any further discussion before we vote? Okay, all those in favor, Swick,
Aye.
Peyton,
Aye.
Nathan,
Aye.
Sweat,
Aye.
Rojas,
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes unanimously. Good luck. Make good use of your time.
Thank you.
We won't bug you. Okay, item N, city manager's report. Written report is provided. That'll be on page 56 of your budget. We're moving things along nicely this evening. Valentine's Day. I'm sure there's a few dinners waiting at home. Okay,
Okay, I get the hint, Mr. Mayor. So, really quick, I'm not going to touch on all the things. Just like Mr. Wolfer said, we did apply for a CDBG CV grant for a little over $640-something thousand. It was a full team effort and couldn't have done it without basically everyone at the city. It was all hands on deck, from Clayne picking up the box of the original copy and the 4 copies that Diane and Jan and Heidi had helped put together and tag, and then the harbor master on her day off taking a couple hours to bring it to UPS for us because weather was bad and we wanted to just get it out to make sure it made the state's deadline, and it did. And something that didn't make it into the packet, but I wanted to make sure council saw, was that the public health nurses that come to Seldovia to administer vaccines out of this building wrote a letter of support for us, but they sent it after we had already submitted our grant application. But I told them I would make sure that you guys saw that their letter of support, because it was really kind and they appreciate coming here and getting to use the space. In the packet, you have the FY23 budget meeting calendar, and after our work session today, we know we need another work session on the mortgage rates and other information. Our population increased from 216 to 258. The auditors were here last week and it was successful. So I think in the FY20 audit process, there were over 5 findings, and this audit process, there was only 2. So that's a success. The library still requires masks. The Borough Assembly President, Brent Johnson, called to share with me that the borough was moving forward with asking the legislature to consider amending state statute so that the borough can then change the way they allocate who gets a seat on the planning commission. So they want to make it based on districts rather than based on cities. And so there's no action that we can take at this time unless we wanted to write a letter to our legislators saying that we don't agree with that. But for now, there's no progress on that yet. Diane has been amazing helping the city get caught up with delinquent accounts. So please tell her thank you. This is something that, let's see, I'd have to sign on to Zoom to share with you guys, so I can email it out tomorrow morning to save us time. But we do have a logo for our 60th anniversary. We worked with a contracting firm. You pay an artist like a very small amount, like $60, and they can design a logo for you and all these things. So we came up with one in-house and talked with SVT and the chamber about how the city can just fold some 60th anniversary events into their schedule of events. And so one which the mayor agreed to help lead was the Key to the City event for July 3rd, inviting our dignitaries like Senator Murkowski, Congressman Young, Senator Sullivan, Mayor Pierce, you name it, Governor Dunleavy, to Seldovia on that day to witness that event. So hopefully we get some attendance. And there's other ideas in there as well. Senator Murkowski had a town hall on the infrastructure bill. And I kind of touched on a point with you guys earlier that it wasn't reassuring being from a small community that doesn't have things in the queue and doesn't have all of the documents prepared that we're set up right to pursue the grant funding at this time. It doesn't mean that we can't get there. It was kind of like lighting a fire under me of, oh my gosh, how can we get ready? How can we get all of these things? How can we afford to produce all of those things? So that was the main takeaway that I got. In addition to, there's going to be a federal grant symposium on April 11th in Anchorage, where representatives from various federal agencies are going to be in Anchorage to help cities understand all of the grants. And so if that ends up being an invite open to all cities, I'm going to ask for council's permission for myself to attend that, as well as our finance officer. So I'll let you know if I hear more about that. Ground truth trekking. We received an email from the state. They're doing a special land use permit review, and just wanted to share those materials with the council. They're enclosed in your packet in case council wants to write a comment about it, because in our comprehensive plan, one of the goals that's outlined in the comprehensive plan is enhancing backcountry access. So just wanted to bring that up to council's attention. So if you want the city to do anything about it, you basically have to let us know tonight, because we won't have a meeting before the deadline to submit comment. And then the city clerk got from, who was it again that we were working with? Sorry.
Vertical Bridge.
Vertical Bridge, that Verizon should hopefully be up by mid-March with their new tower. And then there's enclosures regarding the manager's report, including the budget meeting calendar. I suggest you take a look at that, because we're going to add another meeting to that list. And so it's already growing. And then there's additional information, an email and attachment the city attorney wanted to make sure council saw about discretionary function immunity. There's an email with KPED Special Projects Manager Cassidy Cameron concerning EDA grant opportunities. And then there's a flood hazard notice that the borough sent us in January. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Questions or comments from council?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to see us respond to that thing from ground truth trekking. I mean, it certainly is something that, you know, gets talked about periodically as the trails and everything, and we're trying to push that with more tourism and yada yada. So anyway, I would be in favor of writing something in support of that.
Mr. Mayor, if I may?
Okay, yep, go ahead, Vivian.
Yeah, I would agree with Bobby. I think mainly because it does follow right with our comprehensive plan. I think a letter, if all of council was on board, something from the city would be a great thing to present. Thank you.
Thank you, Vivian.
Mr. Mayor,
Yep, go ahead.
I actually disagree with the trail as presented. I don't know that. I think there's a lot of things that need to be taken into account with ground truth trekking's trails. I know that they, for whatever reason, I don't know the legal reason why they're not doing their Tucka Bay Trail, but the trail that they have presented for the Rocky Ridge Thruway is really ambitious, and it I think it will take away from the habitat that we have here. I think that I've heard from a lot of people throughout the community that this is not something that hikers and community members at large are comfortable with. I know that tribal members and users are not comfortable with this particular trail. I do agree that it does fall in line with our comprehensive plan. I think that some sort of some sort of plan in future, sure, but this particular trail proposal, I do not think is in favor of our wildlands. I'm sorry, this is a really big soapbox for a couple of us, and I kind of didn't prepare myself for this topic tonight, but I am not in favor of the city writing a letter of support for this trip.
Okay. Thank you, Harmony. Anyone else?
I have one more comment.
Yep.
Well, I think it's too bad we didn't know about this a little sooner, so we could have maybe had those guys come and talk. And
I have like a whole thing on it. But
I mean, the timing is, the deadline is the 25th, so, I mean, I don't really know much about that. I'm just going by what I read. And so I don't really know all the details.
So I'll just chime in here. So that's a problem too, then, right? If we don't have, we're asking our city to make a recommendation conceptually, absolutely, the concept understood, but without the devil's in the details, right? So
Yeah,
I don't
that's
know.
true.
I haven't looked at the routing for this. Harmony, obviously you've dug in a bit deeper on this, and there's a group that feels that, that might not be the most advantageous, route. I don't know any of the details, but I don't think it would be fair without, full consensus of the council to ask the city to write a letter of support, especially when we don't have anything from the public or anything on
Well,
this.
you know,
This
there's
could get-
I agree with that.
could
yeah.
get super messy. So the best I think we could do here is encourage everyone as individual council members, take a look at the information. There's a couple weeks left, 10 days or whatever it is. Take a look at it. If you feel it's worthy and it's a good project, go ahead and submit a comment on your own. Sign it, council member, sign it wherever you want to. But yeah, for us to ask the city that represents all of us for support, I don't think that's fair without, going through, if it would have been an agenda item and we talked a little
That's-
more and
yeah.
had, opportunity for the public to comment and then openly debate it, great.
Yeah, I agree with that for
but-
sure.
If you guys are okay with that route. So George,
Didn't we have somebody in here to talk
Yeah.
about this trail before?
we did.
4 or 5 people?
And there were
Yeah.
a lot of there were several community members who showed up who were against it, and they do not represent everybody in the community who has feelings about that trail.
Okay.
They just represent the people who saw it on an agenda and came. So there's a lot of mixed feelings about this trail. I'm not against a trail or ground truth trekking or Brett or beautiful presentation, but this project in its entirety is controversial, and I don't think that the city should take a stand.
Okay, I was just a little confused because I thought we had talked about this before.
So is this-
What impact would this have on goat hunting?
lot.
Yeah, well, if you cut off the trail to goat hunters,
You can't. I will say that is one of the things that is a consideration to take into account, is that this would not be like a state park maintained trail. This wouldn't be a trail that is maintained by any particular entity long-term. So like say somebody who's not an experienced hiker sees that we are advertising this trail or that it's being advertised and they want to come over for a day, it's really easy to get lost in the Alpine. And there are lots of goat trails and bear trails and side trails. Somebody might wander off to pick blueberries and get lost. There's a lot of there's no like state park employee that's going to make sure that everybody who enters the trail is counted for at the end of the day or knows where they're hiking or camping. Nobody's going to be up there making sure that people aren't shooting in the nanny herd or any of those types of things. There's no plan at this time that I'm aware of, or funding at this time that I'm personally aware of, that will account for those types of uses. This is a trail it's going to be pretty big as proposed. So it's going to be something that you're going to be able to see along the mountainside. It's going to be very inviting, but once you get up over and away from town side, it's going to be pretty mountainous. So I don't know. That's one piece of it to take into account as a city entity. Who's taking care of the hikers? Who's maintaining the health and safety of bystanders on that trail? That's just one small piece of that conversation. And nobody's going to be saying at the foot of that trail on either end, don't shoot a nanny.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, one
Yep,
point.
go ahead, Vivian.
Yeah, I think I can agree with the rest of the council if you don't want to write a letter, but as our mayor said, if you're in support of it, to write. And you're right, George, we did have, Brett came in and did a presentation. And so I would encourage everyone to read what he's putting forward. And it's going to be a small trail. The controversy is about those people who do hunt goat and are concerned about the nanny herd. But one thing I will say is that there is really no legal access to get to Graduation Peak. Every year, everybody goes up the TV tower, goes across native lands, and you're illegally trespassing. So the trail that would go from Rocky Ridge Trail, go up to Graduation Peak, which would be a great little hike. I mean, not a great little hike, it'd be a good hike for someone. Just going to Graduation Peak, but be on legal ground is a big plus for Seldovia. Doing the big trek, I think most people who are hikers know what they're doing or are conscientious. Right now, we got people going to the back country who go back there, and that's just what they do with no rhyme or reason. But I would encourage, just for your own knowledge, to read up on what Ground Truth Trekking has put forward. But it is a controversial issue. I can appreciate that. And so for those of us who do support it, who have read about it and talked to Brett directly, put in your letter of support if that's what you feel. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Vivian. Okay, well, I think that's what we'll do then. We'll hold off on having the city respond, and then council members individually can respond if they want to, with support or not. So either way. Okay, any other questions, comments on any other thing that in the manager's report tonight? Okay, you're off the hook.
Actually,
Oh,
I was just about to say, I wanted the city clerk to also address something about the mailer regarding Jackalope dock.
yep, go ahead, Heidi.
Sorry, real quick. I do apologize. The information that I provided before pertaining to the mailer for Jackalope Dock was not a complete story. I had a great meeting with the bulk mailer clerk out of Anchorage for USPS just last week. And while I had thought I clicked on the box for all addresses in the Homer area, it was just all PO boxes. So there's different carrier routes. There's like 6 or 7 different carrier routes that go to the individual routes, and it's just as expensive, just many, pretty much they're on par. It's like over 3,000 boxes, over 3,000 individuals, but you can choose the different routes. So administratively, myself and Rachel went through and identified which routes looked to hit the most main area of Homer. And instead of sending it out to all the PO boxes, we are going to send it out to the 2 main routes that cover Pioneer, Main Street, up West Hill, and cover really the main area, along with because those routes do not include Halibut Cove, Tutka Bay, Port Graham, and Nanwalek, and they wouldn't have anyways. I would have had to contact the Homer post office to get the information for those addresses to send it off. It would have been an additional fee from what I'm understanding. So we're collecting addresses and for main entities for those areas. For instance, Halibut Cove has it's not a chamber, but it's like an oversight website with their information that we can send information to, and they'll get them out to their businesses because it has them listed. Port Graham is their tribal council, Nanwalek's IRA council, and Tutka Bay Lodge. So Rachel's working on individual letters for those entities. So we'll send out information with individualized letters to Homer routes, all the Seldovia post office boxes, and we'll have the information on our website and available for more people who want them.
Never thought that was going to be so complicated. Holy moly. Okay, Jesus.
You have no idea.
Okay, thank you for that update. Item O, informational items not requiring action. Seldovia City Office will be closed Monday, February 21st, 2022, in observance of President's Day. Item O2, depending on council members' availability, a Seldovia City Council work session will be held Tuesday, February 22nd, 2022, to discuss the Seldovia Permanent Fund, AMLIP, and grant policy, refuse services, the senior meals program, the city boat storage yard electric, and the kiosks at the harbor. That's a lot on that one plate.
It is happening, by the way. Everyone confirm.
Okay, you saw how what our hour and 15 minutes went through tonight. So, and yeah, you guys know, I mean, that these work sessions, and I don't like to be short with anyone, but we got to keep it moving and try to stay on task for the task at hand. It's real easy for any of us to get sideways and go on some little crazy little rant, but let's see here. Item P, executive session, none. Item Q, council and mayor comments concerning items not on the agenda. Swick. Peyton. Nathan.
Yeah, nothing now.
Sweat.
Yeah, I just want to thank you guys again, like I said earlier, for all your hard work and especially on this grant thing. I'm gonna try to be hopeful that we're gonna get somewhere with that. I know we have a lot on our plate, but thank you for doing that, and everybody just doing a really great job. Thanks.
Thank you, Rojas.
Yeah, thanks everyone for your hard work and happy Valentine's, and go home to your families and friends. Thank you.
Thank you, Vivian. And Kennedy.
I just want to thank the city staff for all their hard work. That's all I have. Happy Valentine's Day.
Okay, thank you, John. Yep, I'll echo the same. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate all the meetings tonight, good information, and all of them appreciate the extra effort by everyone to bring us all this information. And yeah, a lot of things happening here. We're moving at a very fast pace here. So next regular meeting will be held on February 28th, 2022. That's the regular meeting. And we'll look for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any objection? Okay,
Nope.
we are adjourned.
99, everyone.
Okay, we're adjourned. but
Vivian.
Group photo.
Yes, yes.
Happy Valentine's. You missed
Yes,
donuts.
happy Valentine's to you too. All right. Bye-bye.
See you, Vivian.
Bye-bye.
All right, we're all gonna look like ants. We're gonna look like ants in that thing.
Mic up before they go to sleep. That was Peyton and Sweat on the adjournment, right?
Yes.
Yeah. You seconded it?
Yeah.
These are you.